Salutations gaming enthusiasts, George Marinerd here, and welcome to the second episode of this backward series of retrospectives on the Mario & Luigi series of games. If you fancy watching my Paper Jam video first, there's a card you can click in the corner. Spoiler warning for the whole of Mario & Luigi Dream Team in case you haven't played it. Going straight from playing Paper Jam to playing Dream Team is quite the shock. On the one hand, there's the world design and music and writing and just about everything that's a million times more creative and interesting than anything Paper Jam has to offer. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of quality of life improvements from Paper Jam that are now missing. You can't fast forward through cutscenes, this one's more personal, but I think the card system was far superior to the badges, and of course, Dream Team's notorious tutorials. That's kind of a tongue twister. Try saying that 5 times fast. Notorious tutorials, notorious tutorials, notorious tutorials, notorious tutorials, Okay, that's a little extra joke that wasn't in the script. Whereas Paper Jams are optional. Really, this is a good thing. I personally believe that the Mario & Luigi series improves mechanically with each entry, which is something you can't really say for Paper Mario. And that's a sign of an ever-improving series. The stories, of course, are more subjective. Dream Team itself was the game that introduced things like being able to retry lost battles immediately, not through an awkward limited item like the retry clock, and offering easy mode to make the game accessible for the wimps of the world, as well as expert challenges. I loved the heck out of this game when it first released. It felt like a fresh new chapter in the series had begun. This was the first game with a 3D modelled environment, which fitted well with the game being on the 3DS. I'm one of the few who always adored the 3D effect in this console's games. I always felt it added a new and valuable layer of realism to the worlds I played in, really adding to the immersion. The sprite work on the characters was given a huge overhaul. Even though they're still sprites and thus maintain the charm they had in the previous titles, they appear more three-dimensional. They look like they fit in the new 3D environments more than this would. Also making Dream Team feel fresh and new is the fascinating new location of Pitillo Island, as well as moving on from old plot threads. I like to call the first 3 games in the series the Fourful Saga, because they each follow the story of this ambitious little evil beanish man and how he goes from assistant to dreams of something bigger to slowly and stealthily planning his uprising to bringing both local monarchies to their knees and very nearly succeeding in taking over the world. That was a fantastic multi-game plotline, but it had a satisfying conclusion in Bowser's Inside Story, and Dream Team was a new beginning for the series. Pitillo Island is a fantastic new location to explore. On paper, the sorts of locations you visit are the normal sort of generic Mario fare: grasslands, desert, forest, beach, mountain, but in reality they've been designed so well that they feel super unique. This place has history to it. Everywhere you go you can see remnants of the Pitillo culture, from Zookeeper statues, ruins, to the castle and temple themselves. But you also see how construction for the resort now existing on the island has changed things, as different parts of the island are in various stages of construction. I love to see how the ancient and modern structures mesh with the natural landscape and interesting plant life found throughout the island. Pitillo Castle is a marvel. I love the ancient looking masonry with all its moss and signs of wear, and the interesting blend of ancient architecture and modern additions. Oshirai's Park is gorgeous. This doesn't mean much because Mario & Luigi games don't really do much with the grassy fields type of area, but this one's my favourite. It's a beautiful, vibrant locale with so much colour. A lot of recent building work has been done to turn this area from what was a marshland into a welcoming resort park with its own technology invented by the resourceful boss Brickle. Dozing Sands, on the other hand, is still very much under construction. Unlike the other areas where the modern renovations mesh well with the remaining remnants of Pitillo ruins, here the two feel at odds, the landscape being upturned to make way for more permanent buildings later. Wakeport is a beautiful town, with very peaceful and chill music, full of interesting people to talk to and very pleasant architecture, both old and new to admire. The walls and streets look rather Greek to me, being largely white with occasional bits of exposed brick, but the houses and buildings themselves being colourful and stylised with squares. It's honestly my favourite town of the Mario & Luigi games, and that's saying something because I love Bowser's Inside Story's Toad Town. Mount Pajamaja is grand and imposing, with music that sounds determined, cheering you on as you make the challenging climb. Increasing the keys, you increase in height. But then it slows down and becomes a lot softer, more somber sounding once you reach the snow level. Honestly, I think this is also my favourite mountain area from the Mario & Luigi games. What can I say? This game has fantastic world design. Driftwood Shore has a more simple appeal. It's just a pleasant beach that I like a lot. Somnom Woods is incredible though, absolutely stunning. It's the part of the island with no modern construction or disturbance. Instead, the Zkeeper temple here has been overtaken by plant life and the Gnomons. The forest areas of the Mario and Luigi games are very strong, with interesting designs and good stories, and I think the Toadwood Forest is my favourite for how strong it is in the story department, but Somnom definitely wins in terms of visual appeal and music for me. Lastly, there's Neo Bowser Castle, the good one. What a cool castle. I've no idea where these purple clouds and fog are coming from, seeing as the castle is on the ground and it's a sunny day outside, but I don't care. This place has some fun puzzles, great use of the dream world, and some really fun, though difficult, bosses. Also speaking of the world design, Alpha Dream obviously liked the idea of having a subworld on a 2D plane so much that they did it again in this game for the dream world. The dream world is a bizarro version of wherever you are in the waking world, with incredible and surreal backgrounds and visuals, and drowsy, surreal sounding versions of their respective areas' music. I don't know if it has this effect on anyone else, but the dream world actually makes me feel sleepy. Not because it's boring or anything, just something about the haziness of the screen and softness of the music and the vaguely defined, weird floatiness of the background elements. I suppose that means they were successful in making an environment that feels sleepy. So far as battles are concerned, I had forgotten that some of the bros attacks from this game were reused in Paper Jam. But hey, I'm not surprised they wanted Bomb Derby back. It's so good, once I got it I hardly use anything else against regular enemies. Though to be honest, I'm not too keen on most of the bros attacks in this game. A lot of them I hardly ever use, especially Luigi's. This game has an unhealthy obsession with motion controls, which are very unreliable on the 3DS. I definitely think that it's better to collect attack pieces than to randomly get the bros attacks from Nabbit. Gives you a reason to thoroughly explore the area. Badges are pretty good and they can be used rather creatively, and my favourite one on this playthrough was this one that has a 50% chance to completely fill your badge gauge, which can really come in handy when you want a badge effect that takes ages to charge, which the best ones tend to do. Though I still think Paper Jam's card system was way better. The cards were much more versatile and strategic, a lot faster and can do a lot more things. But the real big deal about battles in this game are the ones in the dream world. Most Mario and Luigi games have some kind of alternate way to battle, be it babies, adults or both in Partners in Time, and Bowser or the Bros in Bowser's Inside Story. And this time we have the dream world battles. And they feel very different to the real world ones. Here, most battles are against huge hordes of enemies, so the Luiginary attacks and regular attacks are designed to deal with them. And similar to the previous game's Bowser battles, the attacks in these battles feel super strong and very impactful, channeling the strength of a lucid dream. Though to be honest, with these horde battles all the way through the game, I found myself able to win in one hit most of the time with the very first and weakest Luiginary attack, the ball. Which brings me to a problem with this game. It's too easy. Ooh, that was a nice segue. Since defeating Torkscrew, the bosses became far too easy for me. Fun bosses with lots of build-up I'd been looking forward to, like the Elite Trio and Pitilodium, were going down in 3 to 5 turns. They were barely a threat. I really thought I was over-leveled, so about halfway into Somnom Woods, which is a remarkably beautiful location by the way, with some truly transcendent music, might do a video on it someday, I started avoiding all the optional fights, only to come to Dreamy Bowser and realise he's virtually impossible to beat at level 35 without the Z-Egg and Star Rockets that I hadn't collected. I can't win if he keeps healing forever! Speaking of things that never seem to end, let's talk about the story. Ooh, a joke this time, I'm pretty good at this segue stuff. The plot of Dream Team goes in quite a few different directions. First we're rescuing Pitillos hoping to find Peach, then we're trying to find the Dreamstone and chasing Bowser and Phantasma, then we're assembling the Ultibed, then we're trying to get help from the Zkeeper before finally infiltrating Neo Bowser Castle. This was a nice change of pace after the mostly one-note plot of Paper Jam. Since this game was made as part of 2013's Year of Luigi, it is of course very Luigi-centric. And part of this game's themes is about Luigi's deep brotherly love for Mario. He may be more timid and afraid of the dangers he faces than his brother, but when it comes down to protecting and helping Mario, he always manages to muster up the courage needed to rise, or should I say grow, to the occasion. This is actually the only game in the series to give Luigi dialogue, as he has many lines about his drive to help Mario once we enter Dreams Deep, a realm of the dream world that represents Luigi's deepest subconscious. But here we run into a problem I have with the game. What is the nature of the dream world? Is it a real place your mind is transported to when you sleep, or is it a location that is merely generated by the dreamer? Clearly, Dreams Deep is generated by Luigi, and so are certain characters' Dreamworld versions like Brickle and Britta. But then there's also real beings that happen to inhabit the Dreamworld, like the Seedrings and the Zkeeper, as well as Antasma, who was trapped in there for many years. So does the Dreamworld still exist even when there isn't a sleeping person to dream it up? I always thought that the dream worlds you visit are fashioned after the real locations Luigi is sleeping in because those are the areas freshest in his mind. So that's the sort of place his dreams generate. But is that not the case? This issue doesn't affect my enjoyment of the game, and it's a rather minor and very nerdy problem to have and think about this deeply, but come on, remember whose channel you're watching. While I'm talking about gripes I have with the story, this part where Antasma and Bowser activate the dream beats and start putting everyone to sleep. So to escape, our heroes run an incrementally short distance to the left, Luigi sleeps on a dream point, and Mario hides in the dream world. Now, let me ask you, how exactly is that escaping? If they were trying to not fall asleep, they failed because Luigi is asleep and very much out in the open. Mario isn't asleep, but being in the dream world doesn't really help either. Luigi can't wake up, so in the dream world the bros need to climb the dream world version of Mount Pajamaja, wake the volcano up and get it to erupt so they can escape. Bowser and Antasma were literally in the next room during this whole side adventure. At any moment they could have walked over and captured or killed Luigi and it would have been game over, but they just don't, I guess. This whole part just makes the villainous duo of the game seem really incompetent to me. But the bit in Driftwood Shore where you're trying to hide Peach in the dream world but it just turns out to be Kamek in drag doesn't bother me. It's easy to think of it as a waste of time, but for the first playthrough, having a part of the game where the villains pull a sneaky on you is an interesting twist to the writing. Also, Driftwood Shore and the Seedrings are both so delightful, I just don't mind it. How about I move on to some good things about the story? This game gives us a new villain with Antasma and a new companion with Dreambert. Antasma is an interesting enough villain with a very cool design and an interesting skill set of nightmare powers. There's this sequence in his boss fight where he puts Mario to sleep in an endless nightmare where you're pursued by him and fall through pits of saw blades forever until you either escape or run out of health, at which point it cuts back to the real Mario who just never wakes up. That was freaking horrifying. Although I do wish we got to explore his character more, would have liked to run into him more times throughout the story. Also, Dreambert's good. I really like it when the Mario RPGs gives you more than one speech-capable companion, so there can be conversations at any time, and I'm really glad we get both him and Starlo in this game. In fact, this was the first time a companion in this series ever returned too, so I was surprised to see her in this game on my first playthrough. But though they can be extremely amusing when they do, Dreambert and Starlo don't interact as often as I'd like them to. Normally in the real world, it's only Starlo who comes out to pass comment on goings-on, and of course Dreambert in the dream world. In the real world, Dreambert normally won't make an appearance unless there's something to do with the dream world going on that needs explaining. I do hold out hope that he might return if this series ever comes back from the grave. Also, just thought I'd mention that Dreambert and Antasma's fight, where they just fly around bumping into each other, makes me laugh out loud each time. It's hilarious. This game does a really good job of incorporating stuff from the previous Mario & Luigi games into it. Except for Paper Jam and obviously Superstar Saga, this series always took great care to include elements from previous titles, even more so than Paper Mario, and I always loved that about it. Superstar Saga gets a lot of love with a whole load of Beanish folk and Huskies coming to the island for holidays, and there's even new Husky characters by name of Lil and Big Massive who take minuscule side salads on Mountain Tour to become mega ripped beef. Love these knuckleheads. Also, Popple's there too, I guess. Doesn't do much, just kinda pops up a few times and then leaves unceremoniously. Bowser's Inside Story gets plenty of representation too, most notably with the Brock race being expanded from just Broke Monsieur, Broke Madame, Boggy and some Blitties to a whole load of Brocks that work all over the island, and Brickle and Britta, again another couple of fantastic new characters. Keep in mind this version of Brickle was dreamt up by Luigi, though it would have been nice if Bowser had some positive interactions with his formerly favourite minion, Chippy. Partners in Time doesn't get as much attention. Kylie Cooper does make her first reappearance since that game, and I'm very happy that she does. Though given she was an adult when the bros were babies, I kinda expect her to look older, but that's not such a big deal, after all we don't know her actual age. But what befuddles me is how in the mushroom world does she not remember Mario and Luigi? Neither does Popple or Broke Monsieur. This selective amnesia is very irritating, and I know Kylie says she's done so many jobs she forgets people, but I figured meeting two guys from the future who team up with you and their infant selves to save the world from an alien invasion would be an extremely memorable experience. But still, happy to see her, and I really like the puzzles she hosts. I do wish there was something you got from completing them all, like what if she remembers us after we beat them all? Would be nice. Sadly, seen as though this looks to be the last original Mario & Luigi game, it doesn't look like there will be another one to reference Dream Team. I really want to commend the writers of Dream Team for the dialogue of these characters. Not just the important guys, those are expected to be given plenty of attention in their dialogue, but for the various unimportant NPCs. Seriously, when you play this game, talk to everyone. What they say even changes as the story progresses. There's so much thought put into their writing, especially when Neo Bowser Castle appears and destroys 3 islands. At that point, almost every single NPC gets new dialogue. Sure, quite a few of the tourists, especially in Wakeport, temporarily flee to the blimp port amidst the chaos so you can't talk to them right away, but it's fascinating and actually pretty dark listening to everyone who's left over. Many of them employees who work at the resort who are scared for their lives. I spent several hours wandering around the island talking to everyone I could find. Lots of funny dialogue that most people playing the game would never think to look for. They even gave the Pi'illos new lines. And talking to them is very different than talking to vacationers or employees because they know about Phantasma. Everyone else is scared and confused, but at least these guys know what's going on. Mostly. Also interesting to note are the Toads. Toads are stereotypically very afraid of things like this, but here a lot of them stick around when many others try to flee the island because they're familiar with Mario and Luigi. They know the bros are on the island and are well aware that they put a stop to huge calamities like these on a regular basis. And I think it's really interesting to see them show courage like this in a way that makes sense. Also, we're all in agreement that this guy died once this happened, right? Surely. And speaking of, aspects of this game? Dang it, my segue skills are slipping. It's safe to say this is a long one for a Mario game. Paper Jam only took me 28 hours and 46 minutes, but Dream Team took me 58 hours and 15 minutes. Now that's partially because I'm slow at playing through video games, partially because of all the time I spent talking to NPCs, and partially because I did all of Kylie's puzzles and got up to Rainbow Rank. But this is the longest of the Mario and Luigi games. But to add even more length and value to this game, it has a hard mode. And although I love this idea and would honestly like to see it incorporated into more games, I have sworn never to touch it again. It is evil. You try fighting Dreamy Giant Bowser and see for yourself. And most Mario RPGs don't have a post-game, they all tend to go back to just before the final boss and not allowing the story to stay finished, so to speak. But I would have loved it if this game had one. Imagine being able to talk to all the Pi'illos as they try to find their places in this modern culture on their island. What about Dreambert? What was formerly his kingdom is now a holiday resort. Is he upset about that? Will he start a new settlement for his people elsewhere? And will Dr. Snoozemore ever do anything noteworthy? I'd love to find out about the aftermath of this story, but I'm worried I never will, because Alpha Dream's gone, and there's probably not going to be a sequel.
Please Nintendo, resurrect this series, I love it so much!
And with that, I've covered pretty much everything. It wasn't exactly hard for this game to impress me after Paper Jam's shameful display, but this game holds up as a great time to this day. Oh hey, that rhymed. It's clear to see that I'm ranking Dream Team above Paper Jam, but this is the point the tier list gets interesting, because next up it's Bowser's Inside Story, or rather, the remake that I've never played, which I'm super excited to try out. I love Bowser's minions, so I look forward to Bowser Jr.'s journey as well. So subscribe if you want to see that, and also my planned retrospectives of Partners in Time and Superstar Saga. Until next time, farewell everyone.